Hi, I'm Phil Steele, and welcome to Lightroom Made Easy. Now, I created this course because I love what Lightroom has done for my own photography, and I want to help you get the same benefit from it. Now, Lightroom has increased my productivity as a photographer probably tenfold over what it used to be. I do in minutes now things that used to take me hours or even days to do, so that's the kind of boost we're talking about. And at the same time, the quality of my photos has improved dramatically as well. So I think you can see why I'm excited about this software and eager to share its potential with you. Now, I'll be honest with you, I owned Lightroom for a couple of years, and I kind of sort of used it a little bit of the time for this task or that task, but I wasn't really getting this big benefit from it. And I know a lot of you are in the same position because I hear from photographers every day who tell me, well, I own Lightroom, but I'm not really using it, or I bought Lightroom, but I haven't really figured out how to work with it. So that's exactly the position I was in, and I want to help you go to the next level where you're using Lightroom for your entire photography workflow, because that's where you get the big benefit. Well, if you're anything like me, I know why you haven't mastered Lightroom yet. It's because Lightroom is hard. It's weird. It's unlike any image editing software that we've ever used before, and it can be big and complicated and intimidating. Well, I call this course Lightroom Made Easy because I want to make that big, complicated software easy for you. I want to give you the course that I wish had been available to me when I was trying to learn Lightroom, and I want to make sure you don't have to do it the hard way like I did. So I'm going to focus on giving you what you need to know to get up and running with Lightroom and to adopt it for your entire photography workflow to get that big boost in productivity. And at the same time, I'm going to try to give you all the advanced tips and tricks and techniques and shortcuts that I've learned in using Lightroom to process probably well over 100,000 photos at this point. So let's talk for a minute about what Lightroom is. First of all, its full name is Adobe Photoshop Lightroom. That's because it's made by Adobe and it's part of the Photoshop family of products. And it's made to work hand in hand with Photoshop, as we'll see in later lessons, and that's one of the big advantages to Lightroom. However, you don't have to have Photoshop to use it, and if I had to choose one program over the other as a photographer, I would take Lightroom over Photoshop any day. Now let's talk about what makes Lightroom special and different, because this is also what makes it confusing to many photographers. And the special thing about Lightroom is that it is a database. It is not a pixel editor like Photoshop, where you open a file made of pixels and then you change those pixels and then you save the changed pixels back to a new file. Lightroom doesn't work that way. In fact, Lightroom never touches the pixels in your original image at all. That image is over there safe. What Lightroom does is it records the changes to images as a series of instructions, a computer record in its database as computer instructions without ever touching the pixels in the photo. And then later, when you need to get that photo out of Lightroom, say you want to email it to somebody or print it or display it on the web, Lightroom looks at the original photo and it looks at this list of instructions of changes that you made and it outputs a version of the photo for you to use. So it's a very different way of operating from what a lot of us were used to with programs like Photoshop, and that's the hardest thing for a lot of photographers to get their brain around. Now, this database nature of Lightroom has many advantages, and the first big advantage is that it's non-destructive to your original images. Since Lightroom isn't touching your original image, it's not getting gradually corrupted and altered by revision after revision and losing quality. Your original image is still over there pristine and safe, and you can always get back to it as a starting point. So you may be wondering, if you're not editing your original image, what is this thing that you see on the screen in Lightroom that you're making changes to? Well, that is what Lightroom calls a preview. And it's really just a virtual copy of your image that Lightroom has loaded into its memory, or into its mind as I like to think of it, as a place for you to work and make your changes while Lightroom records that list of instructions describing what you've done to it. But it's not actually touching your original image. So that's one of the big advantages of working in a database like Lightroom. Now, the second big advantage of working this way is that it's very space efficient on your computer, because you can work on countless versions of a single image without actually littering your computer with all of these separate versions of separate saved files. And if you've ever worked on a photo in Photoshop and saved a lot of different versions of it as you're working, you know how quickly you can fill up a ton of disk space with all these minor variations. Lightroom, it's not like that. Lightroom, you can have as many variations on an image as you want, and because each one is just a little virtual copy in the mind of Lightroom, it takes almost no space at all to store that information compared to saving all of these separate images. So that's another huge advantage of working the Lightroom way. Now, this database nature of Lightroom is what makes it so powerful, but it's also what makes it so confusing to so many photographers, because it's just not the way we've worked before. But don't worry, by the end of this course, this will all be made clear, and you're going to wonder how you ever lived without Lightroom. All right, I think we're ready to plunge in. Now, these videos were designed to be watched in order because the later lessons build on things learned in the earlier ones. And as you're watching, if you want to view this full screen, you can always use the button down at the lower right corner of the video player to expand this to full screen view to help see some of the small stuff. So I hope you're as excited as I am to get started on this, because by the time we're done, you're going to be living a dramatically improved life as a photographer. So let's get to work.